Hey, what's up guys, aarava here, and welcome back to the episode of my F1 2020 My Team Career Mode, episode number 109 today for the Italian Grand Prix in Season 6. If you guys did miss the previous one, then be sure to go check that one out before you see this one. Only uploaded 2 days ago, as we're now speeding up the uploads just a little bit of this series. You'll be seeing this at least maybe 3 times a week till the end of this season, which I'm sure is going to be some good news to some of your guys' ears. But moving into then the Italian Grand Prix, coming off the back of an absolutely insane race at the Belgium Grand Prix, which made actually 10 race winners out of 10 rounds in this season. Season 6 has very much been absolutely insane. I didn't even realise that it was 10 out of 10. I didn't even know it was 9 out of 9 going into Spa until one of you guys, or a few of you guys, pointed out in the comments below, but now it's been actually made 10 out of 10. We had Ocon winning, myself, then looking down the table, we got Sainz at Spain, then it was Verstappen at Monaco, Azerbaijan was Lando Norris, then you got Stroll at Canada, Austria was Leclerc, of course, after Albon's demise. Gasly won at the British Grand Prix, Hungary was George Russell, and then Albon came back and finally made up for the dismal effort he had at Austria by winning the Belgium Grand Prix. So 10 different winners, 10 very different winners as well from various teams, so up and down the grid order, the lowest being Ocon down there below our new teammate George Russell even. So yeah, Season 6, I didn't quite realise it, but it's been a bit of a mental season, hasn't it, in terms of race wins and how competitive the season has been, and so it makes it maybe more impressive then, and I'm really chuffed with the fact that we're still somehow then in the lead of this championship, because we've been so consistent. We had that run of about 5 or 6 podiums. It did end last episode, but, you know, clearly, in such a competitive season, I'm chuffed with just getting 6 in a row, or 5 in a row, as it was, because, you know, I think it's very, very tough to be that consistent in a tight championship like this, where pretty much track to track, that is deciding which car is quick, because all the cars now, at least the top 5 or 6 cars in this grid, are all maxed out, so it's very much just dependent on the track we're at, and then also the AI momentum, which we know on this year's game seems to be very, very powerful and kind of comes in ebbs and flows for the different AI. So coming into Italy, I mean, 10 out of 10, I would love to say 11 out of 11, but unless maybe Giovinazzi wants to finally pull his finger out and go and win this one, it may be quite tricky to have a completely different winner now and make it 11 out of 11. So we may have our very first repeat winner of this season this episode, but could be proven wrong, you know. Maybe Giovinazzi is going to come out there swinging. Let's see, you never know. Obviously, it's the home Grand Prix for Ferrari, but as we saw last episode, maybe Ferrari might be on the back foot. Racing Point, I imagine, will be strong yet again, and it looks like Mercedes have actually ended up with a very consistent car this year. Gasly's been up there no matter what kind of circuit it is, so watch out for him. As we've said, we're slowly chipping away at myself and Leclerc, who are still battling, and so far, ever since we actually started that podium run of 5 races in a row, we've been keeping him at an arm's length of about, 10 points or so, which is, as I said, very, very decent. But into Q1 then, you can see very overcast conditions. Seems like it's going to be like this for the entirety of Saturday. No rain forecast, though, but obviously we kind of got caught out of Belgium last episode with that when it was getting overcast. So let's not count our chickens too early yet. There might be some rain. You just never know with this game sometimes with the weather system. But at the moment, it's just very doom and gloom. I'm hoping this is not a sign of things to come, really. But at the moment, a bit of traffic involved in Q2 with Albon, and I think that's a Red Bull just up the road. Hopefully they'll get out of the way. Going to get a bit of a toe off Albon, and Ricciardo's going to let off. Yes, he is. So we actually get helped a little bit there by the Aston Martin livery Racing Point car. Gives us a bit of a slipstream, as we saw, I think that was one of the McLarens going fastest of all. Here we go now to the line, and let's see what that is. P2, and it was actually Stroll, sorry, who went fastest of all then in this session. Gasly and Verstappen right up there, and as we end this session, Leclerc, for the second time, he's not knocked out in Q2, but he's living very dangerously these days. So to say that, I just spoke about me and him being consistent and right up there, and Gasly having to do a lot of hard work to chip away at us in the championship. He's only just managed to get into Q3. What's going on with him? What is going on with Leclerc lately? The last 2 episodes, very odd in qualifying. It's almost like he's starting to crack a little bit with the pressure of, constantly trying trying to catch me in the championship, but not being able to do so. I don't know if that's a thing. Maybe the AI can lose momentum if they don't do well enough in a certain amount of races. I don't know. But that's been twice now where it's been fine. This time he's actually made it through. Last episode he got knocked out. So interesting. Let's see. But both Ferraris are through into the top 10 shootout. So they look like to have some pace. Maybe that engine upgrade they definitely brought to the British Grand Prix when we saw them improve in pace in the straight line. Maybe that's going to actually pay some dividends finally. Maybe last race was just a bit of a fluke and a one-off in terms of stuck in traffic perhaps. But as I said, Racing Point, at least in the hands of Lance Stroll, looking strong. Albon, again, surprisingly, knocked out. Last race's race winner. He's made a habit of that, getting knocked out in Q2, but being very good in the races. He kind of did that in Austria, remember, when he went up all the way to the podium. So, yeah, interesting. Bit of a topsy-turvy Q2 then, really, if you look at it. Q3 now, and your usual suspects in it then, I guess, apart from those guys, the two Mercs, two McLarens, I thought were going to be strong around a circuit like this. And, of course, our car, I mean, historically, the My Team car, I must say, is a very draggy car. So I'm not expecting us to be amazing because it is a very, there's a reason why you have to do so many drag reduction upgrades at the very start of this career mode when you start afresh, because the FOM car is inherently very draggy. So I'm not imagining us to be absolutely blistering with pace like we've seen maybe Russell has been in the last 2 episodes in qualifying, but hopefully we can just be in the mix really and be kind of close to our rivals Leclerc and Gasly. And with 3 minutes to go in this session, we're sort of doing that. We're ahead of Gasly. He's had a bit of a shocker in qualifying, whereas his teammate Verstappen's ahead of us in P4. Leclerc just ahead of us as well as our teammate Russell. Myself and Russell very equalised around here, like literally a few thousandths of a second in between both of us, which is good news because obviously the last 2 episodes Russell's beaten us in qualifying and in the races, to be fair. And although that's not a worry for me right now because he's nowhere near us in the championship, one does wonder a little bit, him stepping into the other car and beating us twice in a row. So hopefully we can try and look on the 3rd race here, try and break the streak. But at the moment, this second lap in the 3rd part of qualifying, not too great. The first sector we were actually in the red. We gained a bit of time in sector 2 to go green, but the last sector into Parabolic a bit wayward and wide with some understeer and oversteer at the same time in the middle of that thing. And so in the end, we don't actually improve our lap time, I don't think. And so we're going to remain in P7 behind our teammate Russell. But like I said, compared to the last 2 episodes, I'm a little bit less concerned about this because we're so close in terms of the lap time. So it looks like that's just where our car is in comparison to everyone else. And Lance Stroll does an amazing job. Not surprised because Stroll and that Racing Point's been a mega combo, especially over 1 lap and just pure pace really over the course of this season and the last one. He's on pole position then for this Italian Grand Prix. Verstappen with an amazing P2 considering his teammate Gasly, who's looked much quicker this entire season, is down behind us in P8. So very topsy-turvy qualifying actually, and Leclerc just ahead of us. So we are actually very much right around our rivals basically of Leclerc and Gasly, and I'm surprised to see the likes of Giovinazzi right up there on the 2nd row. So this may be an interesting race with the championship leaders, including myself, a little bit down the order, and maybe some other people are going to be shining in the race tomorrow at the forefront. Let's see though, because Italy, it doesn't really matter where you are in the top 10, because even P10 has a chance to go and win the race, especially in the F1 game due to the slipstream on this thing. So let's just go to the grid and see how we shape out on Sunday.
We're back in Italy once again for another round of the Formula One World Championship. And what a great race is in store for us today here at the oldest circuit on the calendar. Monza hosted its first race all the way back in 1922. With top speeds up to 215 miles per hour and an average lap speed of around 155 miles per hour, Monza's reputation as one of the fastest circuits in the sport is well earned. We have 11 corners on this 3.6 mile track, with the best overtaking chance coming into the heavy braking zone of the Turn 1 chicane. Anthony Davidson is alongside me as usual for the race today. Let's talk briefly about Lando Norris. Looks like they've got a tough race in store today as grid penalties from changing power unit components has forced them further down the field.
But on the bright side, at least those fresh components can help them maintain the power they need to come through the pack. I expect to see them take a more aggressive approach today to make up for the compromised start.
It's time to see how our drivers are stacking up after yesterday's exciting qualifying session. A fantastic effort from Lance Stroll yesterday puts him on pole position, and Max Verstappen lines up alongside. Moving on to the rest of the grid, we have Giovinazzi, Leclerc, George Russell, and the owner driver. Gasly, Ocon, De Vries, and Valtteri Bottas, Albon, Sainz, Daniel Ricciardo, and Norris, Matsushita, Kvyat, Jack Aitken, and Nicholas Latifi. Giotto, Schumacher, Hamilton, and Kevin Magnussen fills the last spot on the grid. Which of these talented drivers will come out on top today?
So unfortunate news for McLaren and Lando Norris. After qualifying quite well ahead of Leclerc, he is going to be dropped down the order with the grid penalty, so everyone moves up one position that was behind him there. So that's going to be pretty positive for us and everyone, I guess. We're one place closer to the podium where we're trying to aim for, hopefully. Like I said, you know, anyone in the top 10, even outside the top 10, could win this with how close the grid has been this season and how crazy Italy is anyway, no matter what how close the grid is, basically, in the F1 game. Strategy-wise, it is going to be a pretty simple one-stop, but as I said, it won't matter because the slipstream is so crazy that even a one-stop is going to be quite exciting from soft to medium or soft to hard. For us, it's going to be about trying to keep our nose clean, and we've not done that well in the past before around Monza, but we're going to try our best to basically not fight too many cars too much, because then that's the trap you fall into of kind of going out of sync of the leaders, and then there's kind of no chance of getting towards a race victory. So let's just try our best, but it's easier said than done around here. But it should be a pretty exciting one as per usual around Monza. We've got one of our championship rivals on the row ahead, the other the row behind. Here we go to 5 red lights to the Italian Grand Prix at Monza. The lights are out and we're underway, and it's a very slow start for Lance Stroll, and it's a great one for Leclerc and Verstappen, and they go 3 wide into turn 1. We're trying our best to get across to the right, but Gasly comes through. We make a bit of contact with George Russell, but look at Leclerc go ahead. I think it's still 3 wide on the exit at turn 1, and we've actually been left for dust. How's that happen then? As Russell is now side by side with Ocon, and there's already a bit of a gap building, but Leclerc is into the lead for Ferrari at the Italian Grand Prix. He's done an absolute madness on the race start there and leads the way from Lance Stroll, the pole sitter, in second place. Then you got Max Verstappen in third. It was 3 wide into turn 1, so I suspect there was maybe a bit of contact. No damage looks off at anyone though, so pretty fair play to everyone. Gasly P4, Giovinazzi P5 then, so a very slow start for the Italian at his home race from the second row down to 6th place. But let's look at a replay. Look at this start there for Leclerc. I mean, to be also fair play to all these guys. I mean, they did make some huge bit of contact. There's more so the damage model on this game, allowing them to still go through with no damage. But Verstappen very much got sandwiched. That was the definition of being sandwiched, basically. But Leclerc got a great launch, overtakes Giovinazzi, already pulls alongside Verstappen. Stroll had an actually decent start, but it was this dive bomb from Leclerc and this kind of squeeze that forced Stroll's hand. And then off turn 2, he just got a very poor launch because he actually has the advantage there, riding on board with Giovinazzi, looking ahead. And then Gasly slots in P4, watches his teammate have to settle for P3. And Gasly may have other thoughts, because now on to lap number 2. Gasly on the back of his teammate there. The 2 Mercedes might be side by side. Gasly was down in P9, remember, actually. Hang on. How's this actually occurred? I literally have only clocked at what madness Gasly's done. He qualified P9 or 8, was on the grid on P7, and is now up into maybe P3. He's trying his best. So, you know, obviously he sent one down the inside of myself, but then on the exit of the first 2 corners, he must have just really got a great line through everyone, and he's gone for the move. Doesn't quite do it, and in doing so, he's held up not only him, but also his teammate and also Giovinazzi. So here we are then, P6, and we can see those 3 cars right ahead of us. So that's what I'm talking about. Italy, if you attack cars, you run the risk of, if you're fighting them too hard, you'll actually just back both of you up into the cars behind you. You know, we've caught up to Giovinazzi now, and there was a gap previously to the Italian and the 2 Mercs, who are now still battling, and Gasly has gone for a move, we've gone for a move, and we've somehow skated through and done a double move in the middle of the Ascari section, and we've overtaken Verstappen and Giovinazzi. Now Verstappen is really struggling in that silver arrow. What is is going on with the Dutchman? He's been overtaken by Russell now through Parabolica. You've got Ocon there for company as well, Alexander Albon as well, and it might be 3 wide between the McLaren, Mercedes and Racing Point. Russell cuts off Ocon on the inside to defend Albon, and Albon makes a great overtake there, and Verstappen with a big lockup really struggling even more, and he's just going backwards. He's lost about 3-4 positions there in the span of half a lap. What is going on with him? Meanwhile, Russell and Albon are fighting hammer and tong, and we're now getting away from Giovinazzi and trying just to stick with Gasly, because now it's a bit of a tricky part of the race, because there is a bit of a gap between Gasly in P3 and Stroll in P2, Leclerc in P1, so we need to kind of work almost as a team with Gasly, and I guess Giovinazzi might be in there because he's right behind me, but ironically, former teammates, myself and Gasly last season, we're actually going to have to work as if we are teammates this race if we want to try and catch Stroll and Leclerc, because we need to hope that those two fight and that we can just use each other's slipstream to just pull up to them, and fighting they will, because here goes Stroll now. This is a lap or two later with DRS now down the main straight. It's a pretty easy pass for him, and it might be an easy pass for us, but this is what I'm talking about. Lap number 5 then, and we have overtaken Gasly, but this is what we've got to do. Me and Gasly have got to almost keep on overtaking each other, yo-yoing about, giving each other the slipstream, while Stroll and Leclerc hopefully fight a bit more than they just did, because if they do that themselves, they'll pull away. So we need them to actually go side by side for a bit to try and slow themselves up if we want to try and catch up to those two. And so, like I said though, to that effect, Gasly comes through. We're not going to fight him. We're on purpose. We're going to let him through and not fight it too much. Obviously, if he does make a mistake, I'll just, try and re-overtake him, but he's not making a mistake here. We just let off a little bit earlier and just make sure we keep our nose clean, basically, keep our car clean, and we're both working as a unit to try and catch up to Leclerc and Stroll. Sounds very odd, especially since Gasly is no longer our teammate. He's in the rival team, Mercedes. He's one of my championship rivals. But at Italy, it's honestly that important that you got to just try and firm it for a bit, and then at the very end of the race, in the last few laps, that's when you can maybe just go all guns blazing. And at the moment, that fight for P1 is really starting to heat up, because Leclerc comes back at Lance Stroll, but it's not as easy as an overtake as it was for Stroll, as Stroll defends down the inside. This is what we want. These two going side by side will slow each other up, and Stroll can't keep P1, but he does put up more of a fight than Leclerc did with the vice versa attack. So that's going to be quite key for us. We continue just to try and keep in the slipstream of Gasly, use him as a kind of horse to our carriage, basically, because the Mercedes car, the works Mercedes, is the faster car in a straight line around here, it would seem like. So we're just using him, and it's working, because we are closing up. Now, look how close we are now, because these two have been fighting so much now and holding each other up in dirty air that Stroll's re-overtaking Leclerc. But here we are then, in a train, nearly nose to tail almost, from P1 down to P5 almost behind us, with Alexander Albon setting a fast lap of the Grand Prix. Albon recovered so well, knocked out in Q2, and once again he finds himself in the top 5. He was the last race's race winner, and he's showing why, because he's got some brilliant race pace. But now, lap number 12, Leclerc, Gasly, Albon are in, Stroll stays out, I stay out, Russell stays out as well, which means we're going to have to stay out for 2 more laps, because Russell, I think, will be coming in on this lap. But that's fine, because the overcut is actually quite good around here. The AI like to pit a little bit earlier, but I think we found out over the course of these career mode seasons so far, at least on this game at Monza, for some reason the overcut's really powerful, actually. As long as you're in some clean air and you do a decent enough lap time, you should actually be able to gain some time on your rivals. So we continue on for 2 laps. Russell's in on this one, like I said. The only reason I didn't come in on this lap was because I knew Russell was going to come in, because the AI teammate obviously does that usual thing where they come in and they can't kind of, adjust to you going longer. So I thought I'd do Russell a favour and come in on the next lap. But Russell has gained some time in the pit lane there, because he comes out right behind Stroll, and Stroll was leading the race, or was fighting for the race lead. So this might be quite close as Leclerc comes down the main straight. Who's going to get into a theoretical P1? Leclerc will just about manage to do it. So in theory, Leclerc will be in a net P1 once everyone shakes out and makes makes their pit stop. Stroll P2, but look at Russell. He's overtaken Gasly, and Gasly's had a woeful outlap. Whatever has happened to the Frenchman in the Silver Arrow, he's actually got a massive gap to Russell, so we actually might be able to jump Gasly here as well, if we're lucky. So a bit of a misery there for the Silver Arrow and the Mercedes team in general, because Verstappen has been just going down and down and down this race, and now Gasly seemingly has lost out massively in their pit stop strategy. So don't know what went on there, but that gives me some good hope that we can actually jump Gasly maybe, and we can kind of join Russell, maybe pressurizing P1 and P2. We can have a double, both our cars fighting for the race lead maybe here at Monza. And it's a good pit stop from our boys, nice and quick, and so we're already going to be coming out and accelerating on the pit lane exit. Where are the other cars? There are the leaders, Leclerc and Stroll. This is going to be very close. Oh, Leclerc just narrowly doesn't make some contact with us, and we actually watch Leclerc and Stroll go side by side for the race lead. Leclerc had it, but Stroll was trying to overtake him round the outside, so we've joined at a perfect time now. The effective battle for the race lead once Lando Norris pits from the lead on medium tyres, but Stroll in the meantime going for the move on the outside. It's going to be bold. Can he find the room on the inside there? Leclerc pinches him and spins him round. We've got a screen freeze for good measure, but we narrowly missed Stroll, but the screen freeze unfortunately did not help the situation of seeing what happened there, but Stroll effectively nearly T-boned us with the span round off the back end of Leclerc, and we've not got any damage thankfully, but we have been slowed down massively. Let's look at the replay. So this is the replay camera, so it's the same as our onboard but without the heads-up display, because live whilst I was racing this I actually got a screen freeze at this moment, but you can see how lucky was I. Let's look at that in slow-mo. You've got to realise, whilst he span, my game was having a screen freeze. It seems like once, obviously, my PC blew up last week and broke, and ever since I've got it back, my F1 game just seems to like a screen freeze in the middle of any action. So I got so lucky, because I didn't know where my car exactly was in relation to Stroll, because the screen was frozen halfway through that spin. So we are so lucky that we did not break any bit of our front wing there. Neither did Stroll. No damage for him, just spun round. But even though we didn't get damage ourselves, we also just lost a lot of time there, of course, and a position to George Russell, our teammate. But this is what the onboard of Lance Stroll looked like then. He tried to go down the inside and just got a little bit too eager there and should have probably backed out in hindsight. But obviously in the moment, you go for the gap sometimes, and it didn't work out, and Leclerc just completely squeezed him off the road. No penalties for the man in the Ferrari car, and Stroll, like I said, no damage. He just got spun round, so he can continue his race. He can get some points, but unfortunately his fight for P1 is all but over. But for us, frustrating times then. I mean, on one hand, I'm so lucky that I didn't have any bit of my front wing broken because of that screen freeze in the middle of that. But at the same time, I'm also very annoyed because now here we are, so far back from this fight that's occurring now between, this is Alexander Albon, the other racing point in this race, by the way, who's now caught up to Russell, and he's now tucked up in a battle side by side with Russell and going for a move on Gasly. And this is Albon going for the move for the effective P2. I think at the moment Lando Norris is still out in P1, by the way, on medium tyres. But this is the effective P2 battle between Albon, Gasly and Russell. And you can see in the background I'm having to fight Ocon a bit, who is now catching up to me. But as we now try our best to maybe try and catch these guys and hoping they fight enough that they slow each other up, Gasly re-overtakes Albon. And whilst that happens, we are defending once again from Ocon. The McLaren is actually a very quick car, and there's a virtual safety car that comes very awkwardly as we enter turn one. I wasn't too sure who got ahead of who. I think we have just managed to stay ahead of Ocon in that virtual safety car, but the McLaren is actually such a quick car, which is why it's such a shame that Norris got a grid penalty, because I think he probably would have been fighting for the lead as well, as you can clearly see with Ocon giving us trouble. But you can see we're a good 2.3 seconds behind Russell, and 2.3 seconds, it's not a lot, but it's a lot to gain when those guys are so quick in getting DRS off each other. So I need, just like happened in stint 1, I need Russell, Albon and Gasly to hopefully catch Leclerc as well. And then all four of them, if they can start fighting like Stroll and Leclerc were in stint 1, that would be the most ideal scenario to give us any sort of hope of catching up to them and still fighting for the podium, nay, the race win maybe. I'm still trying to remain optimistic after that unfortunate incident with Lance Stroll spinning in front of us. But at the moment, Gasly is actually pulled away from Albon. Hang on, this is a Titanic scrap, because this is two championship rivals, Gasly v Leclerc, and Gasly Gasly, after looking so slow at the start of this medium tyre stint, he's up into the race lead. Leclerc down to P2. This is a misery for me right now. We need to hope we can catch up, because right now my two championship rivals are 1 and 2. Gasly up into P1, Leclerc P2. Albon, though, looking pretty pacey in P3 in the Racing Point. So let's watch out. Maybe Albon might do us a favour and at least go and overtake Leclerc and push him down the order to limit the damage, I guess. But you have to look a long way back to where Lando Norris is. He's trying to make his way through on the soft compounded tyre. Giovinazzi, he pit really early in this race. He pit like 2 laps earlier than everyone and just got stuck in traffic, I think, and he's had a woeful second part of the race, as well as Verstappen. I mean, what has occurred with Verstappen? He was so quick last season in this Mercedes. It seems like the Mercedes team are cursed. Like, you can only have one driver doing well, and it seems like Gasly's come into the team this season and he's made it his own, and he's the quick one in the Silver Arrow, which is quite insane and kind of poetic in a way, because obviously the opposite happened in real life in the Red Bull situation. But Gasly at the moment in our career mode save ours here in the My Team series, doing very well in the Silver Arrow and leads the way, but maybe for not too long, because Leclerc is coming back at him. The Ferrari will give him a fight for the race lead. This is absolutely amazing. Mercedes v Ferrari for the race lead. Leclerc v Gasly, two friends in real life going side by side through turns 1 and 2. Off the exit, the Merc just has it though, and he squeezes the Ferrari out. And look at where Albon is. Albon maybe goes for a move. He pulls out. The Ferrari has to defend. And Albon, can he go around the outside? Yes, he can. What a move that is for Alexander Albon. He's going to do it. No, he can't. Leclerc comes back at him, gets the elbows out, and manages to keep P2. But oh my word, there's been some fantastic racing involving Alexander Albon, I must say, this season. He was last race's race winner. He had some pretty insane moves around Spa, and he's going for another one through Parabolica. Some contact made. Albon is coming alive around Monza, and he's gone for it, and he's up into P2 now. And Russell has got a good run on Leclerc. It might be 3 wide. No, not quite, but Russell gets the move, and he's gonna maybe get up into P3. Leclerc comes back at him, though. The two now side by side, and Leclerc has lost 2 positions in the span of half a lap there, rather than maintaining P2. And that's just the way Monza is on the F1 game. It can all turn in a switch. But one man who's not going to be too worried about that is Pierre Gasly, because he's got now over a second gap to Albon. So out of nowhere, Gasly, after looking so slow at the start of this second stint, he looks like to have a control over this entire race lead maybe, as now Leclerc comes back at Russell. Russell equally trying to make a move on Albon, and Russell goes for the move. He gets swamped, and Leclerc tries a fantastic double overtake. Is he going to finish that off? No, he's not. Albon will maintain P2, but Russell, as he tried to go for the move on the Racing Point car, got boxed in, and so that allowed Leclerc just trying to slip a very cheeky move on the outside of turn 1. Almost made it work. I mean, kudos for trying the double overtake here. Obviously going for glory at his team's home race, but he's at least up into P3 then, and now he's going to go for the move into Ascari. These two holding each other up. Russell will get involved, and now this is very good news for us, because we are slowly, look where we are, we're slowly catching up to them in the background, because this is becoming an absolute ding-dong battle, as Leclerc now is up into P2, Albon P3, Russell P4, but these guys are fighting so much and so hard that they're basically just losing each other time to us and even Ocon, and so we're slowly but surely catching up. And here goes for the what a wobble by Albon, and look at them go. They're 3 wide into turn 1. McLaren v Ferrari v Aston Martin, and Albon on the inside gets pinched. It's going to be Leclerc and Russell on the exit, and George Russell has come through for P2, our new teammate. What an overtake there for him. What a bit of action. I mean, I thought Albon was going to lose the rear end for a second there on the main straight when his rear end wobbled, and look at this. We have arrived on this scene, lap 23, so many laps after our first and only pit stop of this race, that lap where we got caught up with Stroll. Here we are now, and we might have a chance to actually get in amongst this fight. It's going to be quite difficult because all these guys have DRS off each other, but we're trying our best with the overspeed. We've got the DRS, ERS deploy, and we're going to send one down the inside, very late braking, and Albon, to be fair, gives us the of room and he almost invites us to attack him here into turn 1. On the exit, oh, bit of a rear end squirm, and he's going to re-overtake us with the exit not being too great. We're going to get in the toe, and Albon swipes across us, and he loses the rear end. What is going on? And we now lost the position to Ocon. This race has honestly been an absolute mazza. This has been crazy. We've lost the position to Ocon now because I tried to get a toe off Albon, but whilst I did that, as I tucked up behind him, he had some sort of weird, I think he got a tyre on the grass, and so we had to back out that because he almost kind of made some contact with us, so he almost made some more contact with another racing point in this episode, but Albon locks up quite badly as Ocon overtakes him, so I think the fight for the podium is now out of the question, unfortunately. I think Russell and Leclerc are too far away, but can we try and at least re-overtake these two? Down the inside we go of Parabolica, really get the elbows out on Albon. He's had a fantastic race, but I'm sorry, mate, we need to squeeze you out because I've got better things to look forward to. I need to try and get Ocon to limit the damage in this race if Gasly is to go on for the race win and Leclerc P2. Here we go, make the move on Ocon. Cut across the racing line, and we're nice and calm into turns 1 and 2 into P4. So we were a bit harsh on Albon, I will admit, but obviously I was a little bit peeved off at that kind of kerfuffle almost off the exit of turn 2 that saw us actually be overtaken by Ocon in the first place. So needs must. We had to do what we had to do to try and limit the damage because Gasly is going to win, and Russell, oh my days, Russell almost made a last-ditch effort into the last corner, but it is going to be Pierre Gasly that wins the Italian Grand Prix in the Silver Arrow. Leclerc in P2, Russell P3, and ourselves in P4. So surprise, surprise, the 3 championship rivals are in the top 4, and Russell, the new man at the very top of Formula 1 in our car, joins us, and he's on the podium. It was a tough day in the office with that Stroll incident. I think we've done well to recover to P4. Maybe could have been a podium without that Albon incident, so the racing points really didn't help us out the entire race, but it is what it is.
What do you think it was, Ant, that gave them the edge over the competition today?
Well, they certainly stood out as a driver with tons of confidence on the track. I think their ability to keep their cool, even during some of the more hectic parts of the race, meant they were able to capitalise on the mistakes of other drivers, giving the top spot with ease.
So after a magnificent race, we can now see the drivers making their way to the podium. Once again, it's the Silver Arrows who take top spot, a well-earned victory for Mercedes.
Well, there you have it then, the first repeat winner of Season 6 of this career mode. Pierre Gasly is the first one to win 2 races in the season. But, I mean, still, what a record. 10 winners out of 10 of the first 10 races. And then Gasly, a very fitting repeat winner because, I mean, he looked so slow out the pit lane, the initial few laps on the mediums. But then he just came alive in the second half of that. I mean, after the Stroll incident, basically, he came alive. I guess, I don't know, maybe he saw the chance to actually go for the win cleanly. And he showed it with some absolutely amazing race pace because he set the fast lap of the Grand Prix whilst he won that race. But to be fair to Leclerc, I was surprised at his pace today. He really dragged the car up the order compared to his teammate and what I thought Ferrari would do. And once again, Russell was just there. I will say, though, even though he's beaten us for a 3rd time in a row in this season now, ever since coming to our team, I think we would have definitely beaten him this race. I was confident of that before the Stroll incident. So, although he has beaten us 3 times in a row, I'm not that fussed because I'm adamant I probably would have beaten this race. He didn't look as quick this race. We're definitely a lot more equally matched around here, so not that bothered. And to be fair, this season it doesn't really matter that much because he's nowhere near us in the championship. Speaking of the championship, it is now supremely close. We still lead the way, 2 points ahead now of Pierre Gasly, who's in P2, and Leclerc drops down to P3. But the top 3 in the championship separated by 5 measly points with 5 rounds to go. Absolutely bonkers, absolutely insane, and it's no surprise though, because Gasly and Leclerc have just been the most consistent drivers, apart from myself, up here, so it is no real shock to me. I guess you can see a pattern forming, but at the same time, it's kind of, like I said at the start of the episode, it's kind of insane that us 3 have been this consistent, if you consider that it's been so topsy-turvy with 10 different winners. Pretty bonkers, but what a crazy Italian Grand Prix, so much action. If you guys did enjoy that, then be sure to smash the like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. If you're new around here, then do get subscribed for weekly Formula 1 content. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.